Hey there YouTube fans, AC Productions here, and today we're going to be doing a Q&A. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing a jacket, it's because it's very cold here in Chicago. Alright, so a question comes in from Zach Lothringer. Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Your question is there any way to adjust the throttle free play on the R3, or should I just buy the R6 throttle tube to get better throttle response? Well, you're in luck. Today I'll be showing you on how to adjust the throttle free play on the R3. Now, if you're giving it some throttle on your R3 and you notice that your bike is not really going anywhere until you get it a little bit like halfway or a little bit more than it should be, it's just because that's the way they come from the factory. The new riders, are starting to learn how to ride, and they just want to limit the amount of throttle you get, because if you get on the bike and you give it a handful of throttle, chances are you may fall off the bike. So they try to limit the amount of throttle you get to combat that. So I'll be showing you on how to adjust the throttle free play and to get a little bit better throttle response without having to buy the R6 throttle tube. And the R6 throttle tube, all it is just a bigger diameter tube, just so that the throttle cable can wrap around it. So by doing that, you're opening up the throttle a little bit better, so when you twist it, you get it right away. Well, technically you really don't need that on R3 because there's just so much throttle cable you have on your bike anyway. The method that I'll be showing you today, you won't have to buy the R6 throttle tube, and you'll see how better response you'll get from the R3. Let's go over to the R3 and let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now that we're over by the R3, as you can see, I had put some tape along on the body of the throttle and on the throttle grip itself. That way you could see from which point it's going to take to finally have the throttle engage. So we put the little piece of tape there, so that's what, if you want to do the same, you can. That way you'll know on where you need to adjust your throttle. But pretty much it's really not necessary. I'm just doing it for the purpose of this video, so you could see exactly where the throttle starts engaging when we turn the grip. So now I'm going to go ahead and start up the bike, and then we'll see from there on where the throttle starts to engage. So I'm just going to hold it right there, and then I'm going to put another piece of tape to indicate on how far we actually moved it from the original spot. Okay, so as you can see, I already had put the piece of tape right around there at the bottom, so that is pretty much a good amount of free play I have on the R3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on how to adjust the throttle cable so we don't have that extreme amount of free play in the throttle response, and we're going to try to get it as close as we can, where if we just give it just a small slightest turn, we'll start feeling the throttle engaging. All right, so let's move over to the other side of the handlebar so I could show you what part of the cable that you need to adjust. Then I'll also be showing you the tools that you're going to need to do this adjustment. Okay, so from this side of the throttle, you could see we have two cables. We have one over here and we have one on this side. We're going to be going to the one that has this rubber boot right here. If you can see that on the camera, let me zoom in so you guys can see that a little bit better. So you're going to see that this one has a rubber boot. So that's the one where we're going to be going to do our adjustment of the throttle free play. So now the tools that you're going to need to do this job is going to be open end wrenches, and you're going to need one that is an 8mm and one that's a 10mm. So an 8 and a 10mm open end wrenches to do this job. Okay, so now what you want to do first is you're going to go to the part that I just showed you. Let's zoom in a little bit so you guys can get a better view. Now what we're going to do is you're going to move this rubber boot back to expose the adjustment nut. Let's just go ahead and move that over. Might be a little tricky to do it, but just try to do the best you can on moving it over to the side. Okay, now that I got a little bit off of there so you guys could see as I pull it off, So I'll just keep on pulling the boot. You can see them go from this side so you guys get a better view. So just keep pulling it until you get it pretty much almost off, not all the way, because this is the only parts that you're going to need anyway. Okay, so now to loosen up the locking nut right here, that's going to be a 10 millimeter. So just get your 10 millimeter and loosen up the lock nut, which is right over here. Once you get that loosened up, go ahead and give it a few turns. Doesn't have to be that much because I don't think we're going to be adjusting it that much to get the throttle response that we want. To adjust this one, which is your throttle cable, you're going to need the 8 millimeter, and that's where the 8 millimeter is going to come into play. So you want to do is you want to get your wrench, and then you want to turn it clockwise. Clockwise is going to start pulling on the cable and allowing you to get that better throttle response. Now, in order to do this and to really know how much you're going to be adjusting, I suggest you do this in an outside. If you're preferably in a warmer climate area than I am, preferably to do this outside. Or if you're in a garage, make sure you have your garage door open all the way, because you definitely don't want to be having all those carbon monoxide in your garage doing this closed. So for me in my storage unit, I'm going to have the door wide open and I'm going to adjust it and show you at the same time. It might be a little loud in here, so I'll try to do the best I can to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so at this time what you want to do is, now that you have your ventilation going on, either the door wide open, or if you're in a garage, having the garage door wide open, or if you're going to be doing this outside, then you're okay if you're outside completely. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to turn on the bike, and what I'm going to be doing first is turn on the bike, and then I'm going to start adjusting the throttle cable. I'm going to give it a few turns clockwise, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle, and then I'm just going to see how much more I'm going to have to adjust to get it on my preferred location. Preferably, I want to give as little throttle as possible to get it going, to get that throttle response that I want. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so first things first, let's turn on the bike. Make sure your bike's in neutral when you're doing this. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the throttle tube adjuster clockwise. Give it a few turns. Now let's check the throttle free play. Okay, it's getting a little bit better. I only gave it a little bit of motion on the throttle, and I was starting to get a throttle response right away. So I'm going to keep going until I have minimum throttle movement and get proper throttle response. And I think right there is pretty good, because as you can see, I'm barely moving the throttle, and I'm already getting a response from the engine. Alright, so there you go. So that's once you get that throttle response preferred, just go ahead and turn off the bike so you can hear me better. Go ahead and put the locking nut like this, so, and then go ahead, grab your 10 millimeter and tighten up the bolt. Let's go ahead, and if you want, you could also grab your 8 millimeter to securely grab the throttle cable, and then give it a nice good tightness, and now it's all set. So then go ahead and put your rubber boot back on. And that's pretty much all there is to it on how to adjust your throttle cable on your R3 to get better throttle response. Now let me show you on the other side. Alright, so now say that I want to show you a little bit extra part of the adjustment, guys. This is something you're not going to see in any other video ever for an R3. They may show you about the throttle tube, you know, if you wanted to switch it out to an R6 throttle tube to get a little bit better response, but this is something that they don't show you, which I'm going to show you in this video. So say that adjustment that we did on the throttle tube is just not enough. You want every single ounce of throttle response you can get. Well, there is one other spot on the R3 that we can get to. Well, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get to, But what you need to do is you have to remove this triangle piece, which is going to be a 4mm Allen key. So a bolt over here and a bolt over there. So once you remove those two screws, you're going to go ahead and remove this triangle piece out and put it off to the side. So I'm going to try to do the best I can for you guys on showing exactly on the spot I'm going to show you. This spot is going to be throttle cable stop screw. If you adjust this screw, you're able to open up the throttle body just a little bit more so you could get better throttle response. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, now that we have the cover removed, now this is where you're going to find the throttle stop screw. It's going to be pretty much right there. If you could see where I'm pointing at with my screwdriver here and the flashlight. Well, I'll show you with the arrow. I have an arrow pointing to the stop screw, which is right there. But let me move this tape wired area here and see if I could get a little bit more clearance on showing you this screw. Now to adjust the screw, you're going to be using your 8mm open end wrench. Alright, so there's the screw. This is the best I could do for the focusing part. Alright, so with your open end wrench, what we're going to do, as you could see, if you look on this side, that's where the nut is to do the adjustment. And then on this side, you can see this metal part. That's actually where the throttle is. So let me see if I can do this all at once. I could show you in action of what the throttle is doing when you're using it. Okay, so I'm going to move the throttle in the open. As you can see, when I open it, the little metal part moves away from that screw. Then when you let go, it stops right there. And then when as you're giving it throttle, it's going and going and going. Obviously, it's opening up the throttle bodies to get you going. And then once you release it and you're getting to a stop or whatever, you're going and you let go, it stops right there because of that throttle stop screw. Now to open it up a little bit more, maybe you want it just a little bit more, maybe you want it up to like right there. You want it, let's see, if that's fully closed, and say you want it just a little bit more throttle response, you may want to have it maybe like right around maybe this position, and that would open it up a little bit more. So maybe you want it right there, because if you put it just a little bit more, that'll be too much. And then when you start your bike, you're going to be, I would say the bike is just going to probably kick into gear and you're just going to be going right away. So you definitely don't want that much. So I would say just a little bit, maybe just like that much, just a little bit more, just to get you a little bit better throttle response. So I'll probably say right around there for an adjustment. Closed it. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to grab your open end wrench, and I would say probably if you have something like this one that has a ratcheting part of the wrench, that's kind of hard to focus. So this is the part I'm talking about as a ratchet. So this has this end, and then this part actually turns. So that's what I'm talking about. So if you have something like that, that's always best to use for those tight areas. If not, and you have a regular one, then just do it the best you can with that small space on actually turning the screw clockwise, because it is a very tight location. And as you can see, I'm using my screwdriver here to kind of hold up this rubber cabling right here, as you can see, so you guys can get a good view of the screw that I'm talking about. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your open end wrench, and it's going to be a very tight fit to get it on here. But once you get your wrench over the nut, you want to go ahead and you want to turn it clockwise, and just give it just a little bit of a turn clockwise. Once you do that, you're going to notice that the little the metal piece is going to move over. It's best to do this when you have the throttle open a little bit, because that will relieve the tension. If you do it while it's like in this position, just a little bit of tension on that screw, so you may not get it to adjust right away or very easily. So it's best to open the throttle just a little bit like so, like this, and then move the screw clockwise just a little bit. Don't do it too much, because you can open it a little bit too much and that won't be good. So just do it just a little bit of a turn, and then once you do the little turn, go ahead, let go of the throttle, and then the little anchor will actually hit the screw, and that's the stop screw for there. Like I said, this is the extra step that people don't show you when working on bikes, but I wanted to show you guys so you guys could see that there is another adjustment point that you could do for the throttle to give a little bit better throttle response. Once you're satisfied where the throttle is, like I said, just turn it just a little bit. You don't have to do anything else. Just go ahead, turn it clockwise just a little bit, and that's it. So once you're done, go ahead, put your triangle piece back on, And that's pretty much it for that spot. Okay, now you could see as I give it throttle, since we already adjusted as far as we can on the throttle point. As you can see, as I turn it just a little bit, you could hear the engine already revving up. So as you can see already, we're only like, I would say, in the halfway point between right there, in that we're already getting a throttle response compared to being all the way down here and getting a throttle response. So I would say from here to the middle of this tape is a lot better than it was before. So as you can see, I'll give it a little bit. So as you can see right there, right in the middle, halfway with that little piece of tape, I'm already getting a throttle response. So there you guys have it. So that's how you do the adjustment for the throttle response. Like I said, it's a lot better. Now we're actually getting a response in between, in the middle of this this tape right here. If I'm able to draw a line right alongside as you can see the line right here on the middle of this tape, that's where we're actually getting our throttle response. So going from down here to there, that's not bad. That's a really good adjustment, I would say, and you can't beat that. I mean, that's just showing on how much slack I had on my throttle and how much it came from the factory that way. I guess, you know, like I said, it's for new beginner riders, so they don't give it a handful of throttle and then fall off their bike. So, but you know, as you guys progress on riding and making your skills better, obviously you want to have a little bit more better throttle response. Well guys, that's it for this video. I hope hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you found it helpful, give it a big thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notifications button so you guys can be up to date with the latest videos when I post them. And thank you for watching.